Hi Samir, thanks for talking to us. Now you've been in the industry for more than a decade, around 14 years now. How was the scenario when you started off and you decided to get into visual effects?
Yeah, yeah. It actually started probably more than 20 years ago. It was quite a long. I'm trying to remember when I graduated from Sheridan College. So I did my master's in computer graphics and animation from Sheridan College, and that was in Toronto. So I worked there, and at that point in time, it was advertising was basically the name of the game, because visual effects was still at its infancy in Hollywood. So, because when I remember at the time when I joined ILM was a studio that had about 100 people at that time, and through the 14-15 years that I was at ILM, I saw it peak up to 900 people and sort of stay at about 400 to 500 people, sort of average. And then so sort of in the mid 90s was kind of when the visual effects industry sort of started to gain momentum. A lot of work was commercial related, and I moved to New York and I worked for a studio called R. Greenberg and Associates. They were a very cutting edge advertising studio that did mostly work for. We won a couple of Clio awards for Shell and Diet Pepsi and things like that. And they also had started an LA office, and we worked on The Last Action Hero and The Shadow, and that was sort of my first exposure to films. Till that such time, I'd only been doing commercials.
From movies, since you got into movies, movies like Twister, Terminator 2, Pirates of the Caribbean, they're all spanned over a particular time. Now, the work culture has changed from there. I mean, has it become more demanding? Has the visual effects become more demanding? Is the audience more demanding, or the director? What is your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's changed from... Few things have happened. What's happened is the complexity of the work has gone up, so has the quantity of work. At the time when Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 were done, having about 70 or 80 shots in the movie, only 70 or 80 shots, visual effects shots in the entire movie, was a big movie, and it cost a fair amount of money. Today movies have, some of the bigger movies like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and all have had over 2,000 shots per movie. So the growth has been exponential in terms of the quantity of work. Also what's happened is it's kind of a rule of thumb that really hasn't changed, that even though microprocessors and computing power has grown exponentially, computers today are faster. My calculator probably today is faster than some of the computers we used to use 15 years ago. But the rendering time has remained unchanged, because so has the complexity of the mathematical computation that goes behind rendering and giving something a photorealistic look. So at one point in time, while you used to cheat reflections, now you're doing ray tracing. When you were doing poor maths ambient occlusion, now you're doing global illumination. So because all the software has gotten so much better and hardware is now supporting it, the complexity of the technical and the actual time that it takes to compute a frame has gone up exponentially as well. So it's an industry that's evolved tremendously. It's a highly technical industry, it's a highly artistic industry, it's an industry where there are some really, really smart people, and it's a vastly creative industry. And the directors, especially the new breed young directors who have come, either from a lot of people, their background is either animation or visual effects, and they know the process, they understand the process, and they use it intelligently. And even more and more directors, if you watch people like Spielberg's and George Lucas, they're so technically savvy about where and how visual effects should be used, and what they what their demands from that are.
So you think the creative requirements and the technological possibilities, are they going hand in hand, or they keep challenging each other?
It's a challenge because art inspires technology and vice versa. And what happens is artists are pushing the technologists, and because they want to do something. It's a very simple equation. Basically, what happens is every time we're in the meeting, the director or producer comes in and I want to do something in my movie that no one's seen before. That's the mantra. Everybody wants something that they haven't seen before. So that's the holy grail. So every movie you're trying to figure out how the hell are you going to show someone flying that and no one's seen that before. So that's the challenge. So, and that's why you see that they get more and more complex, the visual effects get more and more complex, more and more real, more and more believable. And movies that sort of stay on the side of less is more are more convincing. When there's too much visual effects, it leaves you a little cold, in my opinion. And if they're not done well, it clearly takes the audience out of it. So not only does it have to be completely invisible, and it should look like, wow, that's cool, or how did they do that? But if it stares you in the face and it's sort of like, oh, that didn't look very good, it just takes you out. So that's the big challenge. That photorealistic visual effects, there are only two things that happen. It either looks real or it looks fake. So you always have to make sure that you're on the side of making it look real, because if it looks fake, end the story.
Definitely. Where does India stand today in the visual effect industry worldwide, according to you?
There's a long ways to go. For visual effects, there's a very, very long way to go, in my opinion. The visual effects industry in India has primarily been focused on what they call chroma, green screen work and extraction and roto and all that, and wire removal. Trying to sort of push the creature-based movies, natural phenomenon such as water and tornadoes or earthquakes, or just really, really, really big visual effects film, are actually going to be extremely difficult for India to execute, for most of the studios in India to execute, just because the artists don't have the right experience. So it's going to take, either it takes a big budget, big film to come in and sort of push that. You could set a movie up which is very stylized and be able to pull it off if you've got very good art direction going on that. But if you don't have a good pipeline, which is the fundamental of any large film that needs to be sort of executed from a visual effects point of view, it's going to be a painful process. So I don't see this changing very rapidly, because two things have to happen. The industry's got to demand it, and the industry's got to be able to support it. And by that, what I mean is people who are filmmakers have to realize that visual effects isn't the story. Visual effects are there to help you tell the story. And that's how you need to sort of use it. That it becomes an integral part of your story, whether it's a character that needs to be put in the movie, or it's a creature that needs to be put in the movie, or it needs to be, a style that needs to be put in the film. And I think that's the kind of approach that's going to start to push it. Just straight green screen work and having 500 shots that are green screen isn't necessarily going to propel the industry in the direction that it should go in.